Jennifer Esposito discussing her struggle with celiac disease on Oprah's Where Are They Now?
Jennifer plays Alexandra Quinn, a federal law enforcement instructor getting back into the field and joining the team on CBS's longtime hit, NCIS. Jennifer, so good to have you here. We'll talk about your new role in NCIS in a moment, but let's go back to this diagnosis of celiac disease. But it took you years to figure out what was going on with you, right?
It took me, yes. My first symptom was back when I was a child. I wrote a book, Jennifer's Way, and I journeyed back to the very first symptom, now knowing what I know about it, and it's teeth not growing in as a child properly, or not at all, and then panic attacks by the time I was 12, 13 years old, which didn't make any sense, and then, stomach issues, but for me, it wasn't really GI, it was mostly just everything else. People don't realize about celiac disease, there's about 300 symptoms. That's why when someone asks me, well, I have this or that, and my stomach doesn't hurt, I'm like, doesn't mean you don't have celiac disease. It really is, it's a gut issue. And the gut is in charge of the entire system. So if it's off, your system is off.
Okay, so you're on Samantha Who. We saw the picture of Melissa McCarthy there. Your tooth falls out, and sort of what happens next? She's the one that sort of signals out that something's wrong.
I mean, we were dear friends. We used to live around the block from each other, and she knew I was struggling for a while. I was having panic attacks, and I would sleep all through lunch, and I would just go up and down. She knew I was searching and kept going to doctor after doctor, and my tooth fell out in the middle of a scene with her and Christina. And I looked at them and I said, did my tooth just fall out of my mouth? And they were like, and Melissa said, you're ill. I said, I know, but what do you do? I was with 3 or 4 doctors at that time. And like I said, different things, sinus infections recurring, to where they wanted to drill holes to my eyebrows to release the, insane things.
Well, what did the doctor say?
Everything from, and I had heard it for years, everything from immunotherapy, hypochondriac, to you're stressed, you're in a really crazy business, it's very difficult. No, not when you're having sinus infections recurring and you're having panic attacks to the point where I was agoraphobic at one point. It doesn't make any sense. So thankfully, I just kept pushing. And I went to one female doctor, and she sat with me for about an hour. And she took a test for celiac, and she called me and she said, this is the worst case I've ever seen. I don't know how you're alive. I just don't understand this. And I was with a gastroenterologist from New York for 5 years, and he never checked me. So yeah, it's very frustrating.
So literally, you had to trust your gut. Your gut was
my gut was screaming all over the place.
Help me. But you, in this interview, before you knew what was really wrong with you, when you went to the one doctor, you got admitted to the psych ward?
It's all in this book, and it's a really amazing read because I go through this journey and thinking, wonderful, I was diagnosed. And I was with this big doctor of this disease, and he told me, you have no vitamins here, because what it does, celiac, it just takes all the nutrients from your system, and it doesn't give it to your body. So your brain, your everything is basically in starvation mode. And it was after I was diagnosed, and he was testing me on and on for weeks to follow me because I was in such bad shape. And I said, please keep me here in the hospital. I cannot go home. I'm jumping out of my skin, and I was already gluten-free. And he kept me in the psych ward because he was afraid. Because I said, I want to jump out the window. He was like, oh, you're going to kill yourself, so I'm going to put you in the psych ward. And I thought, this is not okay. And I remember sitting there for the 7 hours I was there and thinking, and looking at all these people that were there. And they said, why don't you have lunch at least? And it was a platform of food with pigs in a blanket and fruit in cans. And I thought, this is what you're giving these people to eat? I know now this is related to my gut. Maybe these people have a similar thing. And I thought, if I ever get out of here alive, because it was a very scary time, that I would do something. So it was an incredible journey. But the other thing I want to say was very important. Serotonin is in your gut, 90%. So if that's off, everything's off. So the mood swings, all the depression was all related. And it was just a frightening.
Doctors were diagnosing various things, as you said. How did the industry treat you?
I mean, people didn't understand anything about it then. It was getting better, but you know, again, people understand what they know. People didn't understand celiac disease. They didn't understand food allergies, and how could they understand when I didn't really understand? And you know, you looked at it as difficult or traumatic or you know, very, very sad. It makes me furious.
What happened on Blue Bloods? Because you were on this hit show, and then you tweeted out that CBS didn't listen to my doc, and I collapsed on set.
Well, it's a whole thing that went on there, but I love them, and I still speak to them. I had a great time on that show. They knew I had celiac when I was hired. It was my first job back, and I took the job thinking it was a reduced schedule. I mean, it was about a family, and then I was the partner. And we were told, you know, it was going to be a reduced schedule, and it wasn't. I got there, and it was Donnie and I a lot, and long, and my health started to decline because it was just too much too soon. And we went and we spoke and kept saying, you know, we need to rectify this, and it just wasn't. It was like, you don't have a sickness. And at that point, I had been told for 20 years that nothing was wrong. I was not going to be told that again, because now I was an advocate for celiac disease. I was speaking to people all over the world about it. I wrote a book. I just couldn't handle that.
You've got the gluten-free bakery Jennifer's Way in New York. It was delicious-looking treat.
Yum.
So did you have to learn how to cook and how to do all these things for yourself to get yourself back and healthy?
Yeah, I'm an eater. I love food. I love food. I love bread. If I couldn't have it again, I would be a nasty person. So it was really me getting in the kitchen, because it's not only a gluten-free bakery, it's an allergen-friendly bakery, because I can't have gluten, dairy, soy, eggs, corn. I can go on.
Oh my gosh, that's the whole menu.
I know, but if you came to dinner at my house, you would not miss anything, because I make everything. I make everything from lasagna to, as you saw, bread and cookies and cakes. I make everything. So it was just a matter of figuring out how to get there. I'm very much like, you give me a goal, and I'll get there somehow.
Yeah.
So that's what it became about.
All right, much more video. Kind of what now, Leonard, gonna have we come to your house for dinner? That sounds good. Also talk about you joining in CIS, the #1 drama on TV, how that's going for you. Talk about your character. Oh, and the affair. What, you're gonna move in with Noah, or he's moving in with you? More with Jennifer coming up next.
Yes.